around where you just died.
What's up, vaqueros, and welcome back to the channel. And you read that title right. We're talking about an SMG, not a shotgun today, which might surprise some of you guys. But yes, in Modern Warfare 2, I did in fact cover a few SMGs and different guns that were mainly hip-fire focused. If you know me, I like sort of off-meta / weird / unorthodox type of things, and this is going to fall right into that. But also, this SMG that I'm going to talk about is pretty meta, and this Tac Stance build, in my opinion, is incredibly strong, and any good player can really wreak havoc with this thing. I promise you guys. If anything, stick around for the build and let me know what you think about it. But today, like I said, we're talking about the Tac Stance Ram-9, so if that sounds good to you, let's just go ahead and hop right into it. So first, a little bit of background about the Ram-9. Obviously, it's another Ram gun. I think this is like the third Ram gun we have. But anyway, this is the newest SMG we have. It's very fun, very solid. It has generally just a good feel about it. And what's really nice is that this thing has an incredibly good time to kill up close for SMGs, where as long as you hit one headshot in the mix, you can lower this gun's time to kill, even with a bunch of limb shots, down to about the 520 millisecond mark. Now, if you want a good resource for this gun and other sort of SMGs and stuff, I highly encourage you guys to go check out JGOD's channel. I'll link a video of his below in the description because he covers sort of the close range meta with ARs and SMGs and all that after the Season 2 updates. So I encourage you guys to check that out if you want a little bit more in-depth descriptions about some of these guns. But because this gun is so good with that one headshot in the mix, it makes it especially good for Tac Stance builds, because with Tac Stance, you have sort of a spread. It's not just as crazy as hip firing, but it's not pinpoint accurate like you're aiming down sights. So when you have a little bit of a Tac Stance spread, you can sort of aim at chest level and you're going to get naturally a couple of headshots in the mix, which makes this incredibly damning if you're on the other side of this gun. So what is the build in question? Well, here you go. This is the build I was able to come up with, which is a Tac Stance / mobility type of build for the Ram-9. A couple things to point out: that ultralight stock pad is for mobility only. That gives us a lot of mobility overall, and we're also using the 40 round mag. If you want to use a 50, you can. I just figured I would go with something a little bit more mobile. Now, we also have the demo flat comb. This is an extremely good attachment for hip fire as well as Tac Stance. The only problem is it really hurts our sprint to fire speed by about 20%, which is not the greatest, but it's not super noticeable from when I was playing with it, unless you're talking about comparing that to some incredibly fast gun built for sprint to fire speed. But also we have the Bruin Bastion angle grip, which is a staple in most Tac Stance builds. And then last, we have the Haste XV grip tape. Now this one you can swap out. I would say out of all the attachments, this Haste grip you can swap out for something else if you want. It does give us a little bit better sprint to fire speed, but if you want better recoil control, put on the Bruin Pendulum or the Lockshot Cubic Comp or something like that. Or you can use a laser like the Razorhawk laser, which is a visible laser, but it does help with Tac Stance as well and gives you some better sprint to fire and aim down sight speed. Now, instead of giving a bunch of attachments purely just for Tac Stance, I kind of balanced it out a little bit, because when you go just Tac Stance, there's only so tight you can get, and it doesn't really get much tighter than with this combination here. So I tried to balance it out with some mobility and also having a little bit of a good Tac Stance as well as good max hip fire potential, which the max hip fire spread is pretty important when it comes to these sort of builds, because otherwise when you start shooting, the bullets are just going to get wider and wider, or rather the spread is. So it's important to focus on that max spread so you can keep that cone very tight. Like I said, this is a good starting point, and I would say that if you want to swap an attachment or two, start with that Haste XV grip tape and maybe try something else just to see. There's also a barrel that does reduce range but suppresses your gun and also gives you a little bit better mobility. That's one worth checking out if you really want to play super close quarters. Otherwise, I think most people will avoid it because you're losing so much range. So honestly, this is a good setup and you guys definitely need to try it. As for my overall thoughts on this build, it's pretty damn disgusting. I mean, even at some ranges, it's relatively easy to use. Ever since the Tac Stance buff that we got for most of the guns besides shotguns, it's a lot easier to control recoil. And if you aim down sights with this thing, you'll notice, okay, the recoil is a little weird. It doesn't really feel that great. But with this build, and if you're using Tac Stance, it feels like there's no recoil. It's kind of strange how that works. I don't know why it's so good when it comes to recoil reduction, but Tac Stance builds just kind of are now. And I think that in a lot of ways, they can be very meta as long as you kind of know what you're doing and know how to utilize it well up close. There were a lot of instances where I just could outmaneuver my opponent because I had such better mobility, and I could still hit my shots decently enough to get a headshot in the mix with that little bit of spread to where they would just kind of get insta-melted. It felt great. It's a really solid build, and I definitely encourage you guys to try this out. This is one of the better Tac Stance builds that I could find recently, so I figured I would share it with you guys. But now, as always, I want to know down below in the comments, What do you guys think about this gun with Tac Stance? Do you guys like this one a lot? Do you have any other Tac Stance builds that I should check out? Maybe, of course, go back to shotguns and check out some more Tac Stance shotgun builds, of course. But with all that being said, guys, I will see you in the next video.